Welcome to Spiritual Calisthenics. Christ is in our midst. On March 10, we commemorate Saint Quadratus the Martyr and his companions, Saint Anastasia of Alexandria, and Saint Michael of Mauroudes, the New-Martyr. These martyrs contested for piety's sake in Corinth during the reign of Emperor Valerian. Your martyrs, O Lord, in their courageous contest for you received as the prize the crowns of incorruption and life from you, our immortal God. For since they possessed your strength, they cast down the tyrant and wholly destroyed the demon's strengthless presumption. O Christ God, by their prayers, save our souls, since you are merciful. From the prophecy of Isaiah.
In that day the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious, and the fruit of the land shall be the pride and the glory of the survivors of Israel. And he who is left in Zion and remains in Jerusalem will be called holy, everyone who has been recorded for life in Jerusalem, when the Lord shall have washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion, and cleansed the blood stains of Jerusalem from its midst by a spirit of judgment and by a spirit of burning. Then the Lord will create over the whole site of Mount Zion, and over her assemblies a cloud by day, and smoke and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For all the glory there will be a canopy and a pavilion. It will be for a shade by day from the heat, and for a refuge and a shelter from the storm and rain. Let me sing for my beloved a love song concerning his vineyard. My beloved had a vineyard on a very fertile hill. He digged it and cleared it of stones, and planted it with choice vines. He built a watchtower in the midst of it, and he hewed out a wine vat in it. And he looked for it to yield grapes, but it yielded wild grapes. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, I pray you, between me and my vineyard. What more was there to do for my vineyard that I have not done in it? When I looked to it to yield grapes, why did it yield wild grapes? And now I will tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will remove its hedge, and it shall be devoured. I will break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. I will make it a waste. It shall not be pruned or hoed, and briars and thorns shall grow up. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain upon it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant planting. And he looked for justice, but behold bloodshed, for righteousness, but behold a cry.
This Old Testament reading of Isaiah compares Israel to a vineyard. And in it, Christ says that even though I did everything right for you, even though I did everything for you, you became wild grapes. And then at the end of it, he says, for the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant planting. And he looked for justice, but behold bloodshed, for righteousness, but behold a cry. This is important because when Jesus Christ tells us the parable of the vineyard, it is important for us to understand that the vineyard that he's talking about is the same vineyard of this here in Isaiah, which is the people of Israel, the people of God. And that Christ our God is looking for the vineyard's fruits, which is us, to be planted and treated with the respect and love that they are due. From the book of Genesis. Continuing in Genesis, this is after the fall of man. And the Lord God made for Adam and his wife garments of skins and clothed them. Then the Lord God said, behold, the man has become like one of us, knowing good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand to take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground from which he was taken. He drove out the man at the east of the garden and placed the cherubim, a flaming sword, which stood every way to guard the way of the tree of life. Now, some people look at this as punishment and go, oh, how horrible is this? Mankind sinned and they get kicked out of the garden and they're not able to be there anymore? We have to understand that this is part of the prophecy for our salvation. Because what has happened? When we sin, we separate ourselves from God. We separate our relationship. Man, Adam and Eve, have separated themselves from God right now. If they eat of the tree of life, they will live forever. If they live forever in sin, they're separated from God. What is hell? Hell is not a place. Hell is not a region of just fire and brimstone. Hell is separation from God. Hell is eternal loneliness. If man had eaten of the tree of life at that time, at a point where they are not ready to receive immortal life, because we will receive immortal life through Jesus Christ, what would have happened? Man would be forever separated from God. There would be no way for man to be redeemed because now man is immortal. That's a problem. And so in order to protect man, in order to save mankind, they're kept out of the garden. Because remember, our salvation is going to take stages. It is not going to happen all at once because our God is a loving God who reveals things to us over time. And the cherubim with a flaming sword is placed at that spot. Now, if you pay attention in church, you'll see on the north door is an angel, the Archangel Michael with a sword. Now, Michael, the Archistratus Michael, is the angel of many ranks, and so he is also a cherubim. And so he is placed at that door, which means that every time the altar boys and the priests leave, it is symbolic because the altar represents paradise. The altar represents Eden. And so we are kicked out of the garden. We leave out of that door. And then on the other door, we see the Archangel Gabriel, who through the Annunciation of the Virgin Mary brings us back into paradise. So it's almost like a cuckoo clock where we go around. It's the story of our salvation during every major entrance of the liturgy and in church services. That we go out of the north door, out of the Garden of Eden, angel that is there to keep guard, and then we are brought back through into the garden, into paradise, through Gabriel on that side. So every single time you see the altar boys go out one door and in the other door, it is literally telling the story of our salvation again and again and again. So this is one of the reasons why the church is arrayed in this way. Now Adam knew Eve his wife, and she conceived and bore Cain, saying, I have begotten a man with the help of the Lord. And we also have to pay attention to how Eve says that God helped her. So God helped her have a child, because the idea of giving birth to a child to bring life into the world is like God. Only God can bring forth life. Only God can engender life. And so Eve rightly recognizes that it is with God's help that we are brought into this world. And again, she bore his brother Abel. Now Abel was a keeper of sheep, and Cain a tiller of the ground. In the course of time, Cain brought to the Lord an offering of the fruit of the ground, and Abel brought forth of the firstlings of his flock and their fat portions. And the Lord had regard for Abel and his offering, but for Cain and his offering he had no regard. Now the reason why this is because if you pay attention to the wording, Abel gave first the first fruits, which means that Cain's offering was the scraps, that he didn't give the first fruits. He didn't give the best of his. He only gave the scraps of it. So Cain was very angry, and his countenance fell. The Lord said to Cain, Why are you angry? And why has your countenance fell? If you do will you not be accepted? And if you do not do well, sin is couching at the door. Now this is an analogy, and in Hebrew it's called revitsu, that sin is couching at the door. It has desire for you, but you must master it. So in other words, sin is constantly beating at the door of our hearts, ready to break it down and tear us apart so that we will do evil things. And God says we have to master it. We can't let that evil come into us. Now that we know what evil is because we've eaten of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, we have to master it. We have to say no when the passions come at us. We have to not give it a place. So in other words, what is happening with Cain is what happens with all of us where we have sin, is that instead of pushing it off a ledge, as it were, keeping sin off of the ledge, we keep giving it more room by giving more thought to it, by giving it a place to sit, to grow. And what that's happening here is that is what Cain has done. He's letting the anger and the jealousy in his heart give sin a place to grow, where it is eventually going to overcome him. And of course, he's going to do the great evil that he is going to do. When we sin, this is what happens to us. We must be very careful with our lives to not let ravitsu, let the sin devour us. We must master it. We must push it away. From the book of Proverbs. Finally, from Proverbs. Toward the scorner he is scornful, but to the humble he shows favor. The wise will inherit honor, but fools get disgrace. Hear, O sons, of father's instruction, and be attentive, that you may gain insight, for I give you good precepts. Do not forsake my teaching. When I was a son with my father, tender, the only one in the sight of my mother, he taught me and said to me, Let your heart hold fast my words, keep my commandments and live. Do not forget and do not turn away from the words of my mouth. Get wisdom, get insight. Do not forsake her, and she will keep you. Love her, and she will guard you. The beginning of wisdom is this: get wisdom, and whatever you get insight. Prize her highly, and she will exalt you. She will honor you if you embrace her. She will place on your head a fair garland. She will bestow on you a beautiful crown. Hear, my son, accept my words, that the years of your life may be many. I have taught you the ways of wisdom. I have led you in the path of uprightness. When you walk, your step will not be hampered, and if you run, you will not stumble. Keep hold of instruction. Do not let go. Guard her, for she is your life. Do not enter the path of the wicked, and do not walk in the way of evil men. Avoid it, and do not go on it. Turn away from it and pass on, for they cannot sleep unless they have done wrong. They are robbed of sleep unless they have made someone stumble. For they eat the bread of wickedness and drink the wine of violence. But the path of the righteous is like the light of dawn, which shines brighter and brighter until full day. The way of the wicked is like a deep darkness. They do not know over what they stumble. My son, be attentive to my words. Incline your ears to my sayings. Let them not escape from your sight. Keep them within your heart.
I hope that you've enjoyed today's Spiritual Calisthenics. Have a blessed and wonderful day.